Welcome into the Baseball Insiders. Robert Murray, the insider of all insiders, is going to break it down today, along with yours truly, Mark Carmen. What's going on with the Brewers, and how about those Atlanta Braves? The White Sox are done. The Houston Astros look dominant, and we are previewing Giants and Dodgers Game 5. The Baseball Insiders starts right now. Bert, good afternoon. What happened to your Brewers, buddy?
Yeah, that was not a good display by them at all. Like that was that you couldn't have scripted any worse for the Brewers.
Are you eating a banana as we're doing the pod right now?
I am. Yeah, I've been working the phones all day, and I have not had a chance to eat until right now. So.
What have you found out on the Bert phone lines today that the Baseball Insiders public is dying to know, that I'm dying to know? Anything interesting?
Oh, lots of actually. Very interesting stuff. We got Padres managerial stuff. We got stuff on the Brewers. I'm sure we'll talk about that very soon here.
So did the Brewers lose to a better team?
That's a really good question. I think offensively, yes, but pitching wise, no. Like with how the Brewers pitched, there's no way they should have lost that series. Like you had Burns who pitched a gem. Woodruff was solid. Like he was in a position where he put the Brewers in a position to win. Freddie Peralta pitched well, but like the Braves, they're good. But like, if you would have asked me before the postseason started who had a better chance of winning the World Series, I would have told you it was the Brewers. And here we are.
So they're going to talk about Freddie Freeman's bomb for a long time in Atlanta. And I pulled some stats here, courtesy of our guy, Jason Stark over at The Athletic. Freddie Freeman. Let's actually do it from the Hader standpoint. Josh Hader against lefties. Career left-handed hitters are hitting 124 against Hader. That's the lowest of any left-handed pitcher against left-handed hitting fellow humans, is how he wrote it. Hader this year has thrown 228 pitches to left-handed hitters. Of those 228 pitches, how many were hit for a home run before Freeman? The answer is 0. So credit to Freddie Freeman, but that was completely fluke of the moment, not something you could ever predict. And I mean, he's got a sweet swing. He's been clutch. He's been an amazing player for the Braves, but that was a complete stunning way for this series to end.
It was. And like, if we're talking from Freeman's perspective, like there's a reason why he's a National League MVP candidate year in and year out. And it's for that exact reason. He took advantage of a hanging slider by arguably the best reliever in baseball. And there's no reason why the Braves shouldn't they shouldn't sign Freeman to an extension tomorrow. Like it won't happen tomorrow, but like there is no way that you can let Freddie Freeman leave Atlanta since he's a free agent at the end of the year. Like, I don't expect him to. Like I fully expect from what I've heard, the Braves are going to re-sign Freddie Freeman, but it's surprising that it hasn't happened already. And so from that perspective, like I wonder if it's happened just because Acuna's deal, which is $100 million, and Ozzie Albies' deal, which is so team friendly. I wonder if the Braves are nervous of giving Freeman significantly more money than those two are earning, just so it doesn't look bad. But from the Brewers' perspective with Hader, like I don't know if you've noticed, but throughout the entire regular season, he has thrown 1 inning or less. He has not thrown more than that. And even in the postseason, he did not throw more than 1 inning. And I know in the last game that he entered in the 8th inning, but he would have been the leadoff batter. Craig Counsell did not double switch. He would have been a leadoff batter the next inning, and Brad Boxberger was warming up for the 9th inning. He would have pitched the 9th inning. Like there are reasons why Hader has thrown 1 inning. I can't go into those reasons quite yet. But it played a big factor in the Brewers not advancing. And same with Devin Williams, like him punching a wall significantly impacted their bullpen layout. But if we're talking strictly Hader, I'm wondering if he's thrown his last pitch in Milwaukee.
That is so interesting because who would not want Josh Hader on their baseball team, right?
Yeah, I mean, like he's a stud. Like you cannot find a more dominant reliever in baseball right now, and it wouldn't shock me if he's gone. I'll double down on that.
It's Sounds, and I don't want to read too much into what Bird is saying here because I feel like there's a line that I might cross here, but it sounds almost, I don't know, personal. Is that too far? Does that seem right? Or is it more, there's just, I don't know, Craig Counsell, the way he wants to use his bullpen?
Yeah. With the word personal, I wouldn't tell you you're wrong. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's directed at Counsell or anything because it's not, but you're in the right direction there.
Interesting. You got to give credit to the Braves here. I mean, Acuna goes down. They could have folded it in. Instead, they went out and made a bunch of moves, picking up like Jock Peterson off the Cubs trash heap, and just bet on his team. Hey, we lost arguably our best player, or certainly in the top three, whatever, and we're still going for this. And here they are in the Final Four.
Yeah, I asked Alex Anthopoulos about that, and he was like, we weren't too far back in the division at the time of Acuna's injury. They were about 4 or 5 games back. And when they acquired Jock Peterson, like they wanted to supplement that roster with talent, and they ended up doing it. But there was also a thought in their minds that if they ended up falling too far back in the race without Acuna before the deadline, they would ended up shipping Peterson away to a different team. And lo and behold, they ended up staying in it. They kept Peterson, and without him, like, do you think it's fair to say like they wouldn't have won that series, or is that too drastic?
I think it's a fair take. Look, and we can pull up Jock's numbers, but he was every time, well, not every time, but there was plenty of Jock Peterson highlights, and he certainly looks very comfortable in Atlanta the way he's jumping around after they won it. This is a guy who's, taking that opportunity on, trying to prove that, the way his tenure ended in Los Angeles and even brief time in Chicago, that, hey, I'm still a big time player in this game, and he's a free agent. Well, he's got the option. So, that's a guy still looking for another big deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like with what he's doing in the postseason now, like he's been here before, like this is nothing new for him. I can imagine if he ends up opting out of his contract that he's going to have a pretty decent sized market. Just because like teams are going to want this guy. And even though he was kind of an afterthought at the deadline, I can't think of many teams who wouldn't be able to use a guy like Jock Peterson. Like he's been phenomenal for them, even more than they could ask for.
Who do you think the better matchup is for the Braves? I'm assuming they'd probably rather play the Giants, but maybe it's the Dodgers. I don't know, 107 or 106 win. That's not exactly you're not jumping for joy with either of those.
No, that's a brutal matchup. And they're going to go into this as significant underdogs. Like they went in as underdogs against the Brewers, but like they're not going to be given much of a chance, at least publicly, in this. And like you would have to think they're going to be hoping the Giants prevail, just because the Dodgers, they present so many matchup nightmares, like offensively, even pitching wise. It's and the Giants, like there's people in baseball who are convinced the Giants are a fluke and that they're actually not that good, which I think is complete BS. Like the Giants, they're the way they've been constructed, they have these really talented veterans, Brandon Crawford, Brandon Belt, who's out right now, Buster Posey, like all these guys, they have really nice young players. They have bottom of the roster guys who are good. And it's like all combined into just making this powerhouse of a team that nobody saw coming. Like I still think the Giants would win that series against the Braves. But like, yeah, if you had to ask a Braves person who they'd rather face, I think they would have to go with the Giants. Like if you were the Braves, who would you want?
Right. Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'd rather face the Giants, but my guy Chris Bryant's rolling so strong here with San Francisco. I got some great Bryant stats here, and I feel like I'm sleeping on San Francisco. But the Dodgers are just terrifying when everything's clicking for them. Like when Cody Bellinger starts coming through again, and I'm like I have Dodger terror. Corey Seager terrorizes me when he's at the plate. Like it's just an endless stream of Walker Buehler is terrifying to me. Like the Dodgers are just. They're just ridiculous. And they're not even throwing that Trevor Bauer guy. Who knows if he'll ever play baseball again? But Max Scherzer, let's just go get him and make him our number one. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. So I would say LA, but I also am terrified. And congratulations, I guess, to the Houston Astros, who, if we can pivot to the ALDS here, I wonder where you stand because I've always been, give me the catcher that can throw out runners. I don't care what he does at the plate. And that's an old school thought, I guess, to a point. But Dusty Baker is doing this with Martin Maldonado, who's like, there's no game that guy's not going to be in the rest of the way. And the White Sox, they ran all over. It wasn't the reason that the Sox lost, but with Yasmani back there and the way Sox guys were running, I mean, the Astros were stealing bases without a throw, a bunch. Yeah. And when you can't shut down the running game, even in today's game, to me, that's just like a small part of like why the Astros are kind of, I don't know if people like sleep on the Astros or something in the Final Four for the 5th straight year, but Maldonado, I think, makes a huge difference for them.
I could not agree with you more. And like, that was actually something I think I may have mentioned that on our first pod, which #GoMe, for actually being able to predict something, because I'm awful at predicting, but like you're right about that. Like Maldonado, like he's not a household name, especially with that Astros team, but like what he was able to do in one calling games, but also like throwing runners out, like I thought it was a brilliant performance that should be highlighted more. I'm glad you ended up mentioning it. And like Grandal, he's a very good pitch framer. Like pitchers love working with Grandal. But I even noticed in Milwaukee, there was a lot of guys who would steal bases on him. And it ended up costing the Brewers at one point. And it ended up costing the White Sox here too.
Do they love working with him? Because the White Sox allowed the most stolen bases in baseball, the highest total of wild pitches, and the most passed balls combined.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to throw to that dude. I think he's gives you a quality at bat, sees more pitches than I think any catcher in baseball, maybe even any player in baseball, I think is the number with Grandal. Yeah. But behind the plate, man, sometimes he just gets lazy.
No, and you're right. Like that was actually a concern that the Brewers had with him too. And like why they ultimately didn't make a bigger push or a bigger offer to re-sign him. Like I want to say like, so the Brewers, as I said, they loved working with him. And like, I've even talked to some White Sox players who have echoed the same thing, but like those numbers you just said, like, obviously that's a huge concern. And like, that's something they're going to have to end up addressing going forward. Like there was even like, I don't know if this ever got reported or not, but like, this was actually like a discussion behind the scenes. Like this is not confirmed. This is me just throwing stuff that I ended up hearing from different sources, but there was a thought, at least around the trade deadline, that the White Sox could trade Grandal to the Mets for James McCann. Like
wow.
And like I heard that from a couple different people, and like nobody with either team confirmed it. But like I wonder if that could be something that either side explores again, if like they want to move on. But those numbers you said, those are pretty damning for Grandal for sure.
So that's super interesting, because when you look at the White Sox needs moving forward here after losing in 4 games, you need a starting pitcher.
Yep.
You need a right fielder. And James McCann, he was extremely tight with Lucas Giolito in his breakout season last year. So that would resonate well in the clubhouse. I love James McCann. That guy's a winner all day long. Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see how the White Sox rework this roster. Tony La Russa is coming back. He had a very, I'd call it rough series. Doesn't use Kopech out of the bullpen in games 1 and 2. Uses him in game 3. Says he's unavailable for game 4. Brings him back in game 4. Maybe the Astros are really good at hitting fastballs, and you can't blame La Russa on Kopech's performance, but it didn't work out in game 4. I don't know. I just thought that, and Tony, just a lot of the stuff, the Astros shifted beautifully. The White Sox, throughout the course of the year, they're on the very low end of that. He just seems, and I would have not predicted this at all, Bert, but he seemed at least at times overmatched here. And credit to Dusty and the Astros. And I think there's some real looking in the mirror for the White Sox to do as to the Tony situation.
Yeah, and that was a huge concern when the White Sox hired him, is they thought teams would end up running circles around La Russa, at least from a game planning perspective or like a game management perspective. And you could not have asked for a worse matchup for him than the Astros, who have been on the cutting edge of this for years now. I realize Dusty Baker is not AJ Hinch, but they've kept a lot of what he's been able to do in place. or what Hinch did in place. And like, as you said, the White Sox, they're going to keep La Russa. There's no way that Jerry Reinsdorf moves on from his guy after 1 year. But in order to get over the hump with his roster, they're going to need to make significant changes. Like, I'm not saying personnel changes. I mean, they're going to have to add some players here and there. Don't get me wrong. But if their game management or in-game moves don't get any better, then they're going to end up in the same exact situation next year and the year going forward, or however long La Russa is here.
That one I heard.
Yeah, there we go. We're getting texts from different sources. I'll tell you, the offseason stuff is definitely heated up. Like, as teams are getting eliminated here, you hear more and more buzz about free agents and who might end up where. So
I like this little addition to the pod. Whenever the phone beeps here, Bert is getting info that he may or may not disclose at this very moment on the Baseball Insiders pod. Is this a where are you going to dinner, or we got a trade brewing here?
Oh yeah, we got significant moves brewing. I'm closing in on a deal for dinner. Sources close to me say, but like, one of my goals for this podcast is to break a deal like while we're recording. Like, if that happens, like, my life will be complete, which may sound sad, but like, no. I'm hoping that's the case.
So let's look at what the Astros have done now in a historic fashion for a second. Mm-hmm. And it's got the cheating thrown in there, and Ryan Tepera of the White Sox is coming over the top after Game 3, which was very bizarre that he's calling out the Astros for still cheating. Who knows what's going on down in Houston? And Baker called those heavy accusations. Regardless, it's the 5th year in a row that they're in the Final Four, 2017 through 2021 now. Only the Braves, 95 to 99, made it to 5 consecutive championship series. So, and of course, that Atlanta team only won 1 World Series in their incredible run. But I guess, does it feel like, to really stamp this Astros team, that they've got to win it again, including the fact that 2017 is tainted? But to the original point, this is, and yesterday on the broadcast, AJ called them just the most confident team he's seen. There is an arrogance, a belief, whatever you want to call it, on this Houston Astros team, because they've had done so much winning that you're going to have to play incredible baseball to beat them. Yeah,
and the White Sox are not able to do that. Like, and I think you're spot on with what you just said. Like, in order to beat the Astros, you need to be perfect. But with the way that they're operating right now, they're a team on a mission to prove that their World Series previously were not won just because of their cheating scandal. That you can see with how they move, you can see with how they operate on the mound or in the batter's box. And even, so the sign to me that showed kind of like how pissed off they are, or maybe just how confident they are in themselves, is after Ryan Tepera made those accusations, Dusty Baker responded with, "Who is he? I've never heard of him." And like, I thought that was the gooniest. Maybe goony. Like, is gooniest a word that?
Sure. On this pod, it's a word. Absolutely.
I absolutely love that. And the huevos that it had to like actually say that publicly. I thought it was awesome, and something that baseball's lacked. But that Astros team is super confident. The Red Sox are going to pose a challenge to them. But like, with the way that they're playing and how confident they are, I would not be surprised if they represented the American League in the World Series. Like, and they're going to be a matchup nightmare. No matter if they end up playing the Giants or the Dodgers, like, that's going to be an incredible series.
I mean, I don't see anybody beating Houston, although I think that actually dramatically changes if McCullers, their forearm tightness is what's coming out after he left after 4 innings. They lose their number 1 starter.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem. And actually, I want to walk back what I said, because their rotation isn't that deep. And even if there isn't anything significantly wrong, it's hard to come back from something like that in the middle of a postseason run. So that's a major, major issue for the Astros. But that lineup, I call that lineup the best lineup in the postseason right now. And that's stacking up against some good lineups. Yeah. But like, who do you want to face in that lineup? That thing is just loaded. And Jose Altuve now with 19 home runs in the postseason, 3rd most all time. That's for Mr. 5'6" second baseman. That's kind of incredible. Bert, what are you hearing about Dusty Baker's future in Houston? Anything? Because I talked to some Astros people when they were in town this week, and it seems like there's no lock that he's actually going to be back.
Yeah, and if he's not back, I think that would be a big mistake by them because so if you're looking at the situation that he ended up walking into, there are not many people who could have kept the train on the tracks there. Because he was walking into basically I don't know if we can swear on here.
Go ahead. A shit show?
I was about to say a shit show or a shit storm. And the way that he was able to navigate that entire situation, obviously it wasn't perfect, but it was as good as you could have hoped for. And yeah, he may not be a guy like AJ Hinch. He may not be on the cutting edge of analytics, but he's gotten the Astros to where they are in back-to-back seasons. I've heard some concerns about how I don't want to say how he handles player interactions, but some players don't necessarily love the guy. From what I can tell. And I still think the Astros would be making a mistake if they ended up letting him go. And they haven't even started negotiations with him yet. As these other teams are signing their managers to extensions, even teams that are way out they didn't make the postseason by a lot, like Torey Lovullo with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He got extended. I mean, it was for 1 year to be fair. But Baker he wasn't extended, or he hasn't had those talks yet. And if he ends up leaving Houston, I wonder if the Padres end up hiring him just so that he can kind of get their culture right. I don't know if he's exactly on their list, but I think the Padres could do a lot worse than Dusty Baker.
Is that because we got a new GM in Houston? I mean, is that the biggest reason that Baker's? Because he wasn't the chosen guy when I'm trying to figure this out because hey, they made the playoffs last year. They're in the Final Four now. It's normally not a guy that gets fired.
No, and maybe, yeah, I think that could end up being a big reason why is he would want his own guy. And you end up looking at somebody from the Tampa Bay Rays who are just brilliant. What they've had a pipeline come out of their front office and also their coaching staff too. So it wouldn't be surprising if they ended up having somebody from Tampa on their radar. But I still think if they ended up letting Dusty Baker go, that would be a big mistake and something they end up may regretting down the line.
What kind of chance do you give the Red Sox against the Astros?
Yeah, the way the Astros are performing, I think the Astros are the favorite, but you can't rule out the Red Sox because they feel like a team of destiny at this point. With how they ended up, one, beating the Yankees, and then two, knocking off Tampa when nobody or hardly anybody gave them a chance. What the Red Sox have done is they've ended up escalating their rebuild by a lot. And Chaim Bloom has made it clear that they're not where they want to be. They want to build this thing into a sustainable winner. But they've been able to put these pieces in place and add at the trade deadline, with a guy like Kyle Schwarber, and even some other players without gutting their farm system, which is a lot better than what it was when Bloom took over. I think the Astros are going to end up being favored here. I think they end up winning, but it wouldn't shock me if this thing goes to at least 6 games.
I mean, I might be scarred because, I was around the White Sox pretty much all season long for the last however many years now. And the Astros just were the better team, and it wasn't close. And a lot of people didn't like the White Sox. I actually did. I thought the White Sox were a very good baseball team this year. They didn't play great in the second half. And maybe those Sox will look back on that as they made a mistake not pushing for home field, which they lost by 2 games. But I don't even think that would have made a difference. So the Astros look like trouble. All right, big game tomorrow as we're recording. Giants and Dodgers, Bert. Let me give you a little historical stat here. This is the 5th time in the World Series era that 2 teams with 100+ regular season wins or more have met in a winner-take-all postseason baseball game. Can you name any of the other times it has happened, Mr. Baseball Insider, which is not a trivia guy?
No, I'm like the worst trivia guy you'll ever meet, and plus I'm hungry, so I'm not. I can't even the 2 bananas did not fill me up. By the way, we're still struggling over here. Man's
gone 2 bananas in the middle of a podcast. You got to appreciate it. 2017 Astros Dodgers. The Astros were 101 wins. The Dodgers were 104. That was in World Series Game 7. George Springer. Yeah. 1977 Reggie Jackson's 101 Yankees over George Brett's 102 win Royals team.
Oh,
1931, my favorite year of baseball. That was Pepper Martin's Cardinals over Lefty Grove's Philadelphia A's. In 1912, baby, in Game 8, when they used to have the 9-game series, Smokey Joe Woods, 105-win Red Sox over Christy Mathewson's 103-win New York Giants. But here we go, Game 5. What's your favorite storyline going into this game?
Oh gosh, there's too many storylines to pick here, but I think it's the tale of the pitching matchup here for me. Having Logan Webb go for the Giants, and then also having Julio Urias going for the Dodgers. It's not the premier matchup that many people would have hoped for, especially from the Dodgers end. The Giants are set up perfectly, but the Dodgers, they're not having Walker Buehler or Max Scherzer go. But Urias has plenty of experience. He's got 7 postseason wins by the time he's 25 years old. He's got plenty of experience. And Logan Webb, I think the Giants they're favored. At least they have the matchup advantage here, because I think Webb has the potential to be an absolute star. And there's no bigger stage for him to establish himself in that mold as this one. And I watch him, and I know Hunter, our producer here, is gonna like this this comparison. But I watch him, and I see Matt Cain, at least from a looks perspective. I cannot not watch Webb and see Matt Cain. It happens every time. And Cain stepped up in some big moments for the Giants during their runs. And I think the Giants end up coming out on top of this one, because having a home field in this kind of a game is huge. And I think Webb is a big key in that. And I think he'll end up stepping up to the plate here.
The Giants got Chris Bryant for a song because apparently there was no market for the guy, and the Cubs were punting on everyone.
Yep.
So far in the series, he started in right field, left field, center field, and first base.
Yep.
4 different games, 4 different positions. Never been done before. And this is a guy, by the way, middle order hitter, and he's hitting about 500 in the series, just for the record. Yeah. Nobody wanted Chris Bryant. I don't get it. I'm not saying he's the key to the series, but he's meant a lot to that team.
He has. He's been a huge difference for them. And having that kind of a guy in the lineup is something they ended up lacking in the middle of the order. And now that they so what he's done offensively and defensively is he's given them so many different options and allowed them to play the best matchups throughout their entire lineup. And yeah, it's tied 2-2 going into this game. And I think having him is going to end up being it's going to be a huge advantage, because as you said, he's been fantastic in this series. But if we're even taking a step further, looking at his free agent market, this is only going to enhance what he's got here, or what he's going to end up having in terms of a market and how many teams are going to be in, and what kind of a contract he lands. Is obviously the shortstop class, or this middle infield class, is as stacked as it gets. And that's going to impact some of these guys. But Bryant, he can play all these different positions, and he's not going to be put into this box. He should have a pretty strong market. I know I've told you before that I think he ends up staying in San Francisco. I'm very confident in that. He loves it there. And you can even tell with the juju he plays with. Juju is my favorite word. I even used that word to text you today.
You did.
I did. And yeah, well, but either way,
when I first saw it, I was like, are we having Smith-Schuster on the pod? I was a little confused, but then I got it. I'm being the old man Carm here. It took me a second on your juju, but then I gave you the long juju. I added a bunch of U's onto the juju. I thought that was a good touch by me.
Oh, it absolutely was. And I was at the gym when we were texting back and forth, and I'll tell you, after I got the extended U's at the end, it was Pump City for me. It was real good.
So I since you brought that up, I just have to let people know what it's like to text with Robert Murray, because earlier in the week, let's see here. It was, let's see. We were trying to figure out a time of doing the pod, and I said, "Do you want to do 1 o'clock?" And you said, "I can probably do that since I'll be on my way to the park then." And then I said, "We could do 9 if you want." Then you said, "I think I'd prefer 11. You good with it?" And I said, "Let's do 1." And you said, "Wow, love that." And so So I thought that you were texting somebody else. So I wrote you back and said, because I did like, let's do one. You don't normally get a wow, let's do that on a let's do 1 o'clock. Like normally you get a cool or okay, or I'll be there. Wow. Love that. I thought that was over the top. So I wrote back, I'm not sure that was meant for me. And you said, ha, it was. I'm just an energetic guy. Plus I'm in the middle of a really good workout, feeling good. And that's when I knew that I was a Robert Murray guy for life. That's my dude, Bert. I'm with you, buddy. That's the energy that I want in my life, pal.
Yeah, I love that, baby. I'm telling you, you can't ask for anything less than that. Like the hype level's at 1 billion when you get a good workout in. So I had to even put it through my text messages to you.
Wow, love that. Let's do one. I'm like, this guy can't be texting me. No one would ever say that, but that's how Bert rolls. That's how you roll, bro.
Yeah, that's how it's done. That's how we get scoops. Is the hype level is always high. That's how it's done. Only way to live, my friend.
Give me your Dodgers Giants prediction on the way out here.
I will say the Giants win 3-2. That is what I'm going with. By the way, your dog is making a nice appearance in the background.
Way to go, Poppy. She's making herself comfortable. Oh, look, and get a little turn. Good job, buddy. We're gonna go. We'll go for a walk after this. So, all right, 3-2. I'm assuming in that 3-2. I want KB to be the reason for that 3. Give me a Bryant double in the 8th inning, and Cub fans will be weeping on their couch, remembering when 23 played for, and well, now he's 23, when 17 was a winning World Series in Chicago, and they're being traded for the Giants' 9th and 30th prospects.
Still.
Yeah, and let me just say this, which Jed Hoyer has been in baseball, and I'm sure. I think do you think positively of Jed? Cubs GM / president. Actually, they're going to hire a general manager, which we can talk about in the offseason as to who the hell the Cubs are going to hire. But are you a Hoyer believer or still waiting to figure that out?
So I think he's a very good executive, but I know there's a lot of people who are in wait and see mode with him. It's the opinions around the league are varying. But from my experiences with the guy, I like him. I think he's a very nice baseball man.
He's an excellent communicator. I'll say that. Handles the media well. He also goes to the same tennis store that I do to get his racket strung. Your Advantage, great spot in Chicago. Give a little shout out to my guy who will never sponsor this podcast, but should sponsor this podcast. So I do like tennis guys who run baseball teams. But my point is not really on Jed. It's more on these owners, Bert. They don't know anything about the game. Tom Ricketts, you own the Cubs because your dad started TD Ameritrade and you're a billionaire plus. So you ended up running a baseball team. And okay, you were fortunate enough to go out and get Theo Epstein to run it for you. That was a smart move, but he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. That's not a shot at the Cubs. That's all over the place. Mm-hmm. Like like football, the Davis family. I think they know what the hell they're doing. Chicago, the Bears, the McCaskies. I mean, so it's just, I don't know. I don't know what my overriding point here is, other than the fact that letting Chris Bryant go for the 9th and 30th prospects is not exactly the way. Of course, you could always bring him back, but it did not make a whole lot of sense to me.
It didn't make sense to me either. Like I thought, I feel like they had to trade Bryant because there was no chance he was going to re-sign with them in the offseason. But I fully expected that deal to be a lot more lucrative than it was. Like I expected them to be able to land a guy like maybe Joey Bart or something, was a top prospect for the Giants. And seeing the eventual package that they gave up, I thought it was underwhelming. But at the same time, you could have been the Colorado Rockies and had a GM not trade Trevor Story, who was the most obvious trade candidate in baseball. And now they're only going to get a draft pick in return. Like it could have been worse, but it certainly could have been better at the same time. Yeah.
Well, Bryant, you're saying that he loves San Francisco.
Yeah.
Maybe he does, but he said he loves Chicago. I mean, this is a guy who he does not say a negative word. So it'll be interesting what happens in the offseason. All right. Enjoy Game 5. Enjoy Astros and Red Sox. Congrats to the Braves. Work to do for the White Sox. Work to do in Milwaukee. I think we covered a lot of ground today, Robert Murray.
Yeah, we sure did. It's just an average podcast for us. As we're all across the league. We're leading the league in information is what we're doing, Carm.
Hey, that's exactly why you tune into the Baseball Insiders. Anybody who leaves a rating or a comment, we really, 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 really appreciate it as we try to get this thing off the ground. Episode number 3 in the books. We will talk to you next